Thanks for tuning in at Brackeys.
Hello everyone and welcome to this video on creating a multiplayer FPS in Unity. Today we are going to be creating a user account system with a login menu. That means when our player opens up the game, he will be able to register an account or use an already existing account to log in. And each account will then have some kind of data associated to it. So we'll be able to store stuff like kill count, how many deaths the player has, a level, maybe even some weapon unlocks, depending on what you want to do with your game. Now, when it comes to doing these kind of databases, especially when they're hosted, there are a bunch of different ways of doing it, some very complicated and some fairly easy. And we're going to be focusing on the fairly easy today. So this is by no means a tutorial on how to set up a huge database with lots of control that is super secure, but I will get into your options in just a second. I also want to mention that if you haven't seen the last video, we set up a super cool looking arena. So if you want to have that part of your game, you should click the screen now to check that out in case you missed it. So without further ado, let's delve right into today's video. So you can see that I'm in fact not here in Unity, I'm here in Chrome, and I'm looking at the web version of the asset store on an asset called Database Control, and this is the free version. So the free version of this has been out for quite a while. And let me first explain the very classic way of doing this sort of stuff, and that is creating your own database using some software such as MySQL or MySQL, depending on how you want to pronounce that, and then hooking that up to some kind of web programming language such as PHP is very commonly used. And that has some programming aspects that does require some knowledge there, and that's not the thing that we are going to be going with here. And then you need to then host that database on your own or using some kind of hosting service that you simply buy some server space. You can of course build your own server. That is also a whole other field. And when it comes to these databases, it's a lot about managing them, how large they are, do we need server space, how quick is this, and also a lot of worries about security, and it's really a whole world. And you can of course get into that stuff, and if you want to build the next World of Warcraft, you definitely have to. But I find that this asset, for what we are going to be doing, actually is really, really cool. So what this basically does, if we import this into Unity, is that they create a database for you, they host it on their own servers, and they allow you to create a bunch of users. Actually, they state that you can create an unlimited amount of users, but that is of course only a theoretical limit. And you can, for each user, you can associate a username, a password, and then you have a text variable, which is basically just, well, a string. And that, then you might think, well, I want to have all kinds of stuff registered to user. I want to have kill counts, death counts, I want to have weapon unlocks, all that. And you might be able, you might limit yourself a little bit, but you are actually able to save quite a few things in the text variable, because when you think about it, a lot of this data can be converted to text, and you can have a bunch of different things in this string that you then pull out of it using your own syntax. You can separate different pieces of data with your own symbols and then simply find them in the string. So there are ways of using this to store more data. Now, I will put a disclaimer here. This is by no means a safe way of doing it, and they even state this in the README. It has absolutely no security. So if security and stability is very important, and if you want to get your game out to a lot of users and not just use this as a fun project, well then actually you're in luck, because the same guy just released Database Control Pro, and I mean really just released it. It's like an hour ago when recording this video, and that means I haven't used this, but I followed him on the forum. And basically, this delivers some more security, some more editability in the database. You can have more data fields in there. You can see it says here secure and reliable. Again, I haven't tested this myself because it's so new, but I wanted to mention this as an option. So that is what we are going to be going with, the database control free here. Explore your options or just get into the to the fun part with me right away. So let's get started with that. So you can see in Unity here we have our scene, and we'll just be leaving this now. We're not going to be using it right away. Let's go into our lobby instead and shift into 2D mode here and focus in on our canvas. And cool, I think we are ready for import here. So let's go back on the browser. Let's hit open in Unity, launch application, and of course I will have a download link available to you in the description, and then we can hit download, and I've already done that, so I'm just going to hit import here, and it will store everything in one single folder, so you don't need to click off anything, and hit import, and basically it will import super quickly because it's pretty much only a few text files and a DLL or something, so it's a very small file. And we can clear the console here, and you can see that we now have a new folder called database control. And this comes with a README that is very useful and actually quite easy to read. So I definitely recommend that you scroll through this if you have any questions. There's also a way to contact the guy, and yeah, there's also a setup guide here. So if anything changes from my video, consult the README. Cool. So basically what he recommends you to do is to begin by going to Window and then selecting Database Control Free. And you can see here that mine is currently loading, and you can see that I've already set up my database. If it says you haven't created a database yet, simply hit create database and it should do that on its own. I'm going to select that I want to use database 1. You get the possibility to have 2 databases using the free version, one for each project. So you can only have one in one project. So I'm just going to be using database 1 here, and you can see it says database set up and ready to go. And now we can hit continue, and you get a database ID, which I will blur out. And you have the possibility to empty the database. So you can click this button at any point and it will remove all current users from that database and all that data. It will completely empty it out. So be careful with this option. So I'll just empty mine right now in case I have something on that. And you might get an argument exception, but it did empty it out. I've gotten those. Don't know why it's happening, but it is working. So let's just close this down here so I don't have to blur for the entire video. And what we can do now is we can go and find the demo scene under the C# demo. And this is frankly not a pretty scene if we double click to open it up, but it does have some really cool things in here. Mainly under the menu control object, it has this DC demo menu control C# script. And this is basically just an example of how to use the API provided by the asset, provided by the DLLs, that allow you to register users, log in, get and send data to the database. And it actually does work right off the bat. So if we were to use this UI right here, right now, and see, I hit play here and it tells you that you need to do the window thing first, which we have done. Then we are able to try and log in. So if I do something like test123 and I do the same for the password here and hit login, it should say that there's no user at the moment, username not found. Then we can register. So I'll register again, test123. I'll do the same down here with the password and the confirm password, and I'll register. It'll take a moment to register the user, and you can see that I'm now logged in and I'm able to send some data and get some data. And the sending and getting data we'll not be looking at today. We'll be focusing on the login menu itself. So I'm now able to log out, and then I'm able to log back in here. So test123, log in, and I'm now a registered user, so I get back in here. Cool. So what we'll be doing is we'll start by just using this demo script, and we'll maybe edit it. We'll definitely edit it at a later point, maybe even create our own. If you want to create your own, again, the README, it's awesome, everything is in there. But I thought that we would just spice up this interface to make it fit our game a bit better. So what we'll do is we'll use this as a base. So let's just duplicate this to keep the original, and we'll call this one our actually, let's just call this one login. There. And we'll put this down with our other scenes and close database control folder here, collapse that, and then double click on that to make sure that you have that open. You can see that up here. And now we need to do a bunch of UI editing. Good. So let's take a look at what we have under our canvas. The first thing is our background, and I thought we would just, for consistency's sake, find the same background color as on our lobby here. So let's find the background, go to image, copy the hex color, go to login again, go under canvas background, and then copy the hex color in there. So we'll get the same thing. And the first thing that we are looking at here is the login menu. And I just want to delete the important object here, just the notice up here. It's not important for us. And then let's open up the login here and see what we have in here. So we have a title, we have some input fields with a few description texts as well. We have this text error, which is basically just space for an error message if there are any errors. That could be user not found or blank fields or stuff like that. And then we have two buttons, a login and a register. So let's just go ahead and actually disable this entire object for now, and let's create our own. So let's go right click, create empty, and let's scale this empty up. So let's click and drag in one of the corners and hit down Alt or hold down Alt to scale in both axes at once, and we'll have it sit somewhere like there. And let's make this a and it's going to be a vertical layout group. So that will position things for us, and we'll also call this login here. So that's the new login. And we don't want to force expand on the height. And then we want to add a new element here, which is going to be an input field. And we want to drag that out and back in to have it snap correctly. Let's add component, and then we are going to go layout element. And let's select a preferred height of, let's say 30. That works. And everything else looks pretty good. Let's just rename this to username. And you can go input field or something. I'm just going to call it username and have the placeholder be username and then a ... because that looks super cool. And then what we will do is we will go to login and have this aligned by the middle center. And I actually already like that a lot. We'll also have the spacing be something like 10 pixels so that when we make another element now, there's a bit of distance between them. So just duplicate that by hitting Ctrl D or Command D if you're on a Mac. And this is going to be the password. And we're going to change the placeholder text as well to password ... And then we need two buttons. We need one for register and one for login. So let's right click on here, go and let's actually make another empty object for this. And I'll show you why this is cool in a second. And let's make this a horizontal layout group so we can have the two buttons side by side down here. And let's create another UI button, undo that, and let's drag it out and drag it back in, something like that. And let's add a component to this, which is also going to be a layout element with a preferred height of 35. And let's go here and disable child force expand on the height. And you can see now that this is 35 tall. And we can make this the, let's make this the login button. So login. Actually, let's just add a button here so we are very clear about what's going on. And this is going to say login. Cool. And then we can duplicate that and call this the register button. And we'll edit the text on this as well. So register. like that, and we can add a bit of spacing between them, something like 5 pixels should be fine. And you can see that we now have 2 input fields and 2 buttons. And the last thing that we need to create is the text object that will display any error messages if there is some. So let's just rename this one to buttons, and let's go right click on our login, go UI text, and let's find this text object. It's up here again. Move it out, move it back in. It's kind of annoying you have to do that, but you do. And let's change the color here to some kind of red. And I don't want this to be too crazy, but I do want it to be visible and clear that this is an error. And let's make this italic just to make that super clear. And let's just fill this in as error text. And let's name it the same, so error text. And I think that is pretty much all we need to do for the login screen. So now we need to, we can just delete the previous login screen. Again, you can go nuts by deleting everything as long as we have a copy here to use as reference. And then we can select our menu control, and I want to drag this to the very top. And you can see we now have some missing fields. So the first one is our login object itself. That is the parent object. There we go. Then we have a input login username. That is our input field username and our input field password. And then we have the login error there, which is just going to be the error text. Actually, let me just rename that to login error text. That's fine. And that should be it. And now we are actually already able to play that, and we won't get any errors. However, our buttons won't work. So we need to go in to our buttons, find our login button, add an on-click event, drag in our menu control, and then if we go into function and find the script here, and the naming on that script is a bit crazy, but you will be able to find it, we can go under login, and you want this to be prefixed with login because it's under the login menu, and then login again. So under the login, we want to find the login button. And that will make sure to call the appropriate function for when we want to log in. And then we'll do the same with the register button. So add an on-click event, drag in the game object, and then go to login register button. And that should actually be it. So now we are able to use this UI here. If we hit play, and you won't get any errors. And if I just hit login, we'll get a field blank notice here. And if I use test 1, 2, 3, and then test 1, 2, 3 and hit login, it should actually work. And you can see transitions on to the next scene. So that is completely, that is actually perfect. So the next thing that we want to create is the loading screen as we just saw it. So the loading screen here is currently very yellow, and we don't want it to be yellow at all. So let's go in and find the different elements here. First off, we have a text object. I just want to bump down the size on this. I think it's way too much. Let's go 24, and let's center this on the vertical axis, and let's also change the image here. I definitely want to have the image here, but I want to change it and make sure the scale is 1, 1, 1, so we only scale using the pixels. And let's actually drag it out from the circle object, and you can see this has a demo loading rotate script, which basically just rotates the image over time. And let's actually copy this component, remove the circle object, and then paste it onto the image instead here. So let's paste component as new, and that's going to be fine. Let's change this to positive 360. So we'll do a full rotation in 1 second, I believe. And let's change the source image to use, and if we just control scroll, you'll be able to see all of it. The button reset that we get from our standard assets cross-platform input. I think this works great as a loading icon, so we'll just use that and set native size, and then we can just resize it here. So we'll also set the loading text to use a white color, something like that, and we can position it here in the center of the screen. I think we're getting there. Actually, I want that to be a lot smaller. And of course, you should play around with this more than I do. However, That looks fine to me, for now at least. That is totally usable. So we'll just have those be in there, and the references should still be set up just fine. So that should now be our loading screen, and we can just hit play here, and it doesn't matter which one of these that you have enabled at the beginning. It will go ahead and configure it properly, and hit login here, and you can see that the login our loading screen is now working properly, so that's perfect. I just noticed under our login here that we want to find our password input field, and we want to go down here and change the content type to password, so that whatever we type in isn't visible, so that it will just be showing these stars there instead. So that's perfect. And we can disable the login screen and work on the register screen. So you can see that this is also kind of a UI mess, but that's fine. It's very easy for us to edit. So let's use our current login screen as a base to work off. So let's duplicate that. Let's call this one register as well. Let's enable it. And basically we just need to add another field. So let's duplicate the password field here, and let's rename this to the confirm password, and we'll change the placeholder here as well to confirm password ... Cool. And the buttons now should be register and back to navigate back to the login screen. So we'll have a register element over here, and then we'll have this be the back button. So back button. And we'll change the text on this to back, and that should actually be it. We also need a register error text, and that is pretty much all we need to change. However, of course, we need to set up the correct references. So let's now delete the register object that comes with the scene, and let's set up our own here. So first we need to set up the button on click events here. So we now this shouldn't call login button. Now this should call register back button, and the register button should call register button. Cool, and that should be it. And then we can choose our menu control. We need to drag in the register parent object. We need to drag in the register username. We need to drag in the register password and the register confirm password, and then finally the register error. So here the register error text. And that should all be working now. So if we hit play, it will go to the login screen. We can hit register, we can go back, so that's working. Hit register again, and let's make a new user here. Let's call this the test user, and let's just do test user actually, test user and test user. And let's hit register. It's going to load a little bit, and it's going to log us in as test user. So that is indeed working as well. So the last thing that we need to change here is the actual logged in screen, what gets displayed when we are logged in. And of course, we don't want a logged in screen. We want to transition onto our lobby where we can join games and all that stuff. But for now, because we are just kind of looking at our login system and our user system as an isolated entity, and then we'll plug it into the game later. Let's just have the login system in here and just have it display the most necessary information, such as our username and a logout button. So we'll just keep those two things. So let's actually for this one just go in and edit it directly. And what I want to do is I want to delete these two panels. They're not needed for what we are doing, so just delete those two. Let's delete the send data button. Let's delete the let's see here. So let's go through. Let's delete the title. Let's delete the info. Let's keep that logged in as and the username. So text info 1 and 2. Let's keep those. Let's delete text info 3 and text info 5. However, we do want to keep text info 4, or else it will throw an error because this is referenced in menu control. You can see it says text info 4 here. So let's just go ahead and disable this for the moment to avoid errors, but to not have it clutter up the screen. Let's also find our input data here. We can delete, no, that is also used. So let's just disable that as well. The text error, that's the same thing. Let's delete or disable it, and then we can remove the get data button. So now we only have logged in as, and then the username and a logout button. And we'll delete the logout button and create that on our own. So let's go UI button, and let's call this the log out button. And we'll just change the text on this to, actually I'll write sign out here. That is the new black. And we can change the height of this button, to select the button to 35 to be consistent with our height. And just drag it down a bit, something like there. That looks fine. And then let's change, of course, the color of a logged in as. Let's also make this a lot smaller. Let's do something like maybe 20. Center that on the vertical axis. Let's make it snap to the right here, and let's just move that over, scale that over so it snaps to the about the center of our button there. And then let's find our username here, which is text info 2, and let's make that completely white as well. Actually, let's make this a bit more of a gray to really make our username stand out, and we can maybe even make this bold so it's very clear that this is an important piece of information. And we can move this over just a tad as well, and actually take both of these and move them over just a tiny bit, something like that, so it's kind of centered. And that is all we need to do. So now we can just rename this to logged in as text, and this is the username text. And that is pretty much all. So now we can go to menu control, and everything should still be set up right there. So let's now hit save, and let's hit play and see if our system works. So we know that we can register and all of that, but now we can log in as either test123 or test users, which are the two different users that we have registered. And I'm just going to log in as test123. So I'm going to write that both in the username and the password. You can of course have a password that is different from the username, which is definitely preferred. And we can hit login here. It's going to use our cool loading screen, and it's going to say logged in as test123. And then in some of the next videos, what I will show, or we will do there, is we will create some data that will be able to persist between game sessions. So between the scenes, when you can log off, you can sign back in at a later time, and you will still have your progress in the game saved on the database guys servers. So that is super cool. I think this plugin is awesome for people who just want to get that game working and try some of this stuff out, but maybe aren't PHP or MySQL experts. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to show in this video. I hope you thought that this was exciting. I definitely did. And without further ado, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much to all of the awesome Patreon supporters who donated in July, and a special thanks to Vixian, Filmazone, Andrew K, and Lux Game TV. These videos wouldn't be possible without you.